Okay, Paul, why is it important that you have a dream to go after, and how does that contribute to your overall strength as a human being?
Okay, Elliott, that's a very good and important question. For me, the term dream is used only as a signifier, and under the term dream could be my chief goal,
Right.
my motive, or my objective, right? What you'll find in studying human behavior and coaching people and just working with people in general, that if a person's motive to do something isn't greater than their motive not to do it, nothing happens, right? Most people are seeking dreams or setting goals for themselves because there's something inside of them that's not happy with the status quo or where they're at now, right? You know, I'm sure you've had many times in your life where you thought, well, so I'm this strong, but I could be stronger, or so I've made this much money, but I could make more. So there has to be something moving you forward, right? If there's not a positive to move you forward, then you can use a negative to move you forward. So for example, if someone says, I don't know what my dream is, what they're saying to me as a therapist is that they don't really know what they want to do more than what they're doing right now. And even though what they're doing right now may have caused them back pain or digestive trouble or emotional problems, they don't really know any other way to be, right? So for them, they know that at least they're going to get up out of bed every morning, they're going to be able to breathe, they're going to be able to, you know, feed their family or whatever goes through their head because they've been doing that. But for example, how many people are in a really unhealthy relationship and have kids and are emulating to the children exactly how you should never have a relationship?
Right.
And they've known that, and they feel guilty about that, and they can even witness their children emulating their bad behavior, but don't have the strength to resolve the relationship and either get healthy together or move on, right? So there's a classic case. When I'm working with someone like that, I've got to say, well, what is your dream? Well, most people say, I don't know.
Right.
Well, I say, well, if you don't know what your dream is, tell me what your biggest nightmare is, because that's going to be the point of greatest stress on your body-mind system, on your body-mind construct. So now I have a negative motivator. Some want a positive motivator. I want to be happy with my husband.
Right.
Versus I want to stop fighting with my husband.
Right.
You see that? One sees what they want and is moving in that direction, but the other one's facing what they don't want, and therefore they don't even think about all the things they could do when they're happy with their husband or the way they want to be. They're just thinking about getting out of the fire.
Right.
Okay? So if someone doesn't have enough motivation to get out of the fire, then they stay in the fire and complain about it while their life deteriorates and pay lots of money for help that they don't apply, because in this state you stay in a fight or flight reaction, which shuts down your capacity for learning new anything. It's a survival threat. These people say, I want to get along better with my husband. How do we do it?
Right.
So they're positively motivated. So if someone doesn't want to go in this direction and isn't sure they want to go in that direction, then they're kind of in a state of apathy, which means non-participation, non-committal, not caring. That's a bad spot. So in a nutshell, I have identified that if a person's sense of willingness, self-measured willingness, isn't at least a 7 on a 10 scale, they are not likely to make any noticeable or significant changes that last. They might flirt with change. They might flirt with, you know, getting a divorce or going to counseling or changing their exercise program or changing their diet, but it doesn't last. If somebody has a dream bigger than their crisis, they typically will move forward. So in closing, I'll quote Brad Sugar, a famous Australian multimillionaire who has a formula for change. And he says, when the desire for change is greater than the resistance to change, change happens. So why I select a dream goal or objective or a motive is because I need a direction that person's willing to go, that they have more desire to experience than the state that they're in now. That's the formula for success. And the other key thing is it must be their own initiative. In other words, if a woman's sent to me because her husband thinks her backside's getting too big, the more successful she is at solving that problem for him, the more entangled she becomes and the more freedom she loses and the more likely she is to rebel, which for us as professionals is bad marketing because we think we did a good job, but now this girl's running around overweight and worse than when she started, telling everyone we trained her, right? So with a woman like that, I would have to say, what could we do together that allows you to do something just for you? For example, she might say, well, I really love rollerblading, but I like to rollerblade around the lake, and I get too tired. I can only make it halfway around the lake, and that takes too long to walk back. I only have half an hour. And I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Is your dream to enjoy rollerblading regularly without any problems and just to enjoy it? Yes. Okay, let's hold that dream, and let's allow your husband to think that he's getting his dream, because he is getting his dream, but he doesn't have to know that you're not really doing that to succumb to his control. What's important is that you're doing this for you, and you know that you're creating rollerblade freedom, so you can meditate on your rollerblades, and he just gets the side effect. Now I have an empowering co-creative partner who's working for her own sense of autonomy, freedom, self-love, and learns how to take care of herself, and learns paradoxically that she can give without having to give herself away. That makes sense?
Very good,
She gave him her beautiful backside.
But she's actually finding herself.
But she didn't give it to him under his control. She gave it as a gift to herself. He just happens to get to share it with her. That's bringing a person into a state of self-empowerment. Trying to get people to do things because they're fat or they're unattractive or they're
supposed
wimpy.
to.
You know, like for example, The World's Biggest Loser. To me, that should be a showcase for how to never train people and how to diminish them psychologically. And those people are, what we ought to do is have a show called The World's Biggest Losers 1 year later and see what happens. Right? So anyhow, that's really the key issues of why a dream's so important. You have to have clear direction, and you either have to go into something you want, or you have to choose to get away from something that you feel is stressful and worth resolving, worth to change for, worth enough to resolve to change for. Or you're always going to stay in tread in water for the rest of your life.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah.